This is ITV News at 10 with Julie Etchingham. Good evening. Exploiting children as drug runners has been the despicable tactic of drugs gangs for years now. Hopes were pinned on the Modern Slavery Act as the way to break up the 1,000 so-called county lines gangs. At the last count, they had sucked in 27,000 often vulnerable children in England. Police, prosecutors and lawyers say the act is too complicated and all too often police have to revert to drugs laws which don't stamp out these criminal networks. We found out that in the past 5 years there have been only 7 convictions using the Modern Slavery Act.
There is often no other way. Brute force is needed to tackle the exploitation of children in county lines. When criminal gangs move illegal drugs from big cities to rural locations, grooming young people to do it.
We've also facilitated the movement of children in order to do this.
Jordan was just 13 when he was first coerced into selling drugs like this. A schoolboy exposed to extreme levels of violence.
First time I went county lines, I got stabbed. Shot out, I've been stabbed, punched up so many times, like scars on my body. I just thought it was part of life, innit?
He showed me the money he earned, the drug dens he was forced to live in, and the violent addicts he was exposed to. Lured by exploiters on the promise of new clothes.
I didn't have much. I didn't even have a coat. I didn't even have a phone. I see people around me that happy, they're making money. People making 100 grand in like less than 6 months. Then once I knew what to do, then it just started going all over the country. I just saw it as like they're taking me in as the family, they're taking care of me, they're teaching me, they're telling me what's right, telling me what's wrong, they're telling me how to act, telling me how to speak.
Other children just like Jordan are also exploited for these crimes.
This 16-year-old girl been arrested many times. It's a very hard childhood she's had. The exploiters knew her from the local area and have targeted her specifically.
Detective Sergeant Daniel Jackson works for the Metropolitan Police on covert operations, so needs to hide his appearance. His latest case involved around 20 children.
So this team here were the upstream drug suppliers who they were buying the drugs from.
He gave ITV News exclusive access to their modern slavery and child exploitation unit to explain how the gangs recruit.
The exploiters wait outside schools. They would probably know their parents, see them riding bikes, and they'll just stop them and approach them in the street. And if they don't do what they say, there's the threat of violence towards them, threat of violence towards their family. And once they're hooked, that's it. They're in the exploiter's back pocket. Police, CPS, the public, we all need to change the way we think about these children. Just because a child is found in possession of drugs, it does not mean they are responsible for that crime.
Recognising a child victim's need for support is one problem. So too is bringing charges against the perpetrators under the Modern Slavery Act. In the last 5 years, there have been only 22 prosecutions and 7 convictions for modern slavery offences, where the victim was aged 70 or under.
Those levels of both prosecutions and convictions are far too low, because they just give the message to the traffickers that the reward is high and the risk is low. People are trafficking children. They might be trafficking drugs as well, but what's more serious?
Why is it such a struggle to prosecute and ultimately to convict under the Modern Slavery Act?
Because it's much easier to prove trafficking of drugs than trafficking of human beings.
It means a greater understanding of the crime and greater efforts are needed from prosecutors, police and the public. Only then can the most vulnerable amongst us be better protected from the most extreme degradation.
And Lucy joins me now. You and I have reported on this story over years now, haven't we? And there's always this issue about the difficulty of securing prosecutions and convictions under this Act. Why is it so difficult with county lines and the Modern Slavery Act?
Well, Julie, it was an incredibly progressive piece of legislation at the time, brought in under a David Cameron government, championed by Theresa May, who obviously succeeded him. She described it at the time as the first of its kind in Europe, and at the same time said that modern slavery is an evil against which this government are determined to take a stand. it seems right now that those voices have just faded away. When the likes of us bring it back into the fore again, similar things are said. More resources are needed, more expertise is required to deal with victims. Police and the Crown Prosecution Service need a greater understanding of the issue and also a greater understanding of the stories behind these victims. All of this is of course true, but it also needs a huge push by government, in government. This problem is just as real, just as destructive as it was in 2015. Modern slavery permeates every part of our society, and as we've shown tonight, it is destroying childhoods.
It is indeed. Okay, Lucy, thank you for shining light on it once again. Thank you.
Can you see the hypocrisy here? Hold on a minute. Man will go to jail and beat up someone because, you know, they're a rapist or they're a child abuser, and, you know, people go on Rule 43 and then one's there. But then completely silent the whole criminal world, yeah, meaning the people who the convicts, people in prison, you know what I mean, who would jug a man with hot water mixed with sugar and all them things there, and say, yeah, he's a child abuser and he's this, he's that, he's a sex case, but then say nothing when they're brethrens or other people, you know what I mean? They say nothing when their brethrens and people that they know are doing these things to children. Say nothing about the children who are being abused by these drug dealers. The community is silent. Black Lives Matter is silent. Everybody's silent. Why? Fear and also hypocrisy. You see what I'm saying? Hypocrisy. So a lot of children are being missing, and it ain't because of it ain't just because of, you know, like paedophile rings and the government, Illuminati and all these things that, yeah, drug dealers that are dealing with it, yeah, and we've become so desensitized, we've become so immoral, where we used to have morals, them things that couldn't run before, yeah, a drug dealer would it be seen to. You know what I'm saying? Now we've become so immoral that anything goes. Just so long as you can get a food, just so long as you can get that bag. Hypocrisy at the highest level, boy. Trust me. Don't be talking about the government. Don't be talking about the middle class. Don't be talking about the rich looking down on the poor when our community is doing this to its own children. You bunch of hypocrites.